Thank you so much for joining us today at the Charleston virtual session for Toward an Open Future for Humanities and Social Science Research. I'm Emily Farrell, the Director of Open Research Americas at Taylor & Francis, and my co-panelists today will be Amy Harris, Senior Manager, Library Relations and Sales at the MIT Press, Maureen Walsh, Scholarly Sharing Strategist at The Ohio State University Libraries, and Jean Springs, Collection Strategist at The Ohio State University Libraries. I'm going to start today by speaking a bit about the work that has been going on at Taylor & Francis and F1000 to support humanities and social sciences researchers. Amy will then speak about how the MIT Press has also been supporting researchers in these disciplines. And Maureen and Jean will then talk about the library perspective and the work that they have been doing to support humanities and social sciences. So just a quick start to give an overview of where Taylor & Francis sits in supporting open research broadly. Beginning in 2003 with a green open access policy, and then moving through to introducing hybrid journals in 2006, open access books options with Routledge in 2013, and then in 2016 signing our first transformative open access agreement with the Dutch consortium VSNU. We also introduced data sharing policies on all our journals in 2018. In 2020, F1000 Research, which is an open sharing, open publishing platform that I'll speak about later, joined Taylor & Francis. In 2021, we also increased our data sharing policy to include books, which connects nicely to what we're doing for humanities and social sciences, because Taylor & Francis does have strengths in these disciplines with about 1,400 hybrid open access journals in humanities and social sciences, as well as a big books program with Routledge. It makes it incredibly important that we have a focus on the ways that we can support humanities and social sciences researchers in publishing more open research. So to step back a little bit, it's important to consider why that matters in the first place. So why is it important that we support social sciences and humanities researchers to publish open? In general, what we're seeing is that open research does increase reach and readership of research, so it increases geographic spread. We see higher citations in hybrid journals, and that's been the case at Taylor & Francis, higher downloads of articles where they're published open research, and that is impactful for humanities and social sciences researchers as well as STEM researchers. It also tends to reach a wider audience, to the media and to policymakers. So that's increasingly important where we're battling a landscape of misinformation, where we really do want the media to be able to access verified research beyond unreviewed preprints, for instance. Making all research outputs, including data, open ensures that researchers can get credit for all of those research outputs and all of the pieces of research. So that is increasingly important. And then there's also the broader societal benefits of making sure there's a connection to social sciences and humanities research. And we saw that during the COVID pandemic, and you can see that in a quote here from Claire Graves from the Economic and Social Research Council in the UK. The science, of course, in developing vaccines, for instance, is incredibly important, but without the social scientists looking at how those vaccines get to people and people's beliefs about vaccines, without looking at those pictures, that picture holistically, we really miss something. So it is important to support the open publication across the board and to consider the specific needs of humanities and social sciences researchers. So I'm going to first talk about two case studies that have involved transformative agreements, and look at how they have influenced increases in open publication for education and for politics. So the first case study, and this has been anonymized, focuses on a national agreement that Taylor and Francis to just illustrate how we can support, how we're supporting particular disciplines. So this looks specifically at the effect on education research, which was an area of excellence for this particular country with their agreement. 28% of articles made open access under the agreement from 2019 to 2021 were in behavioural sciences and education, with a real focus on education research. In 2018, before the beginning of the agreement, 31% of research output from this country in TNF's educational research journals was open access, and by 2021 that had risen to 88%. So there's a clear increase in publishing in these disciplines with under this sort of agreement. And that, of course, connects to it being more challenging for humanities and social sciences researchers to find individual APC funds rather than do it through a collective institutional level agreement. We also saw an increase in downloads, so from 6,500 or 6,500 the year before the agreement, and going up to 33,500 downloads once the agreement was in place. So definitely a dramatic impact on education under this particular transformative agreement. Likewise, in another agreement that is started last year and is running through 2023, the agreement, 79% of articles had politics as a focus. 10% of the articles were open access in politics journals in 2020, and that grew to 72%. So again, a big impact, and particularly in this discipline. And we're also seeing that bear out in the altmetric mentions. So articles getting more attention, and getting more attention beyond standard things like citation. So of course, for humanities and social sciences researchers, it's not just journal articles, but open books are incredibly important, and also extending through to more parts of research output, like open data, is becoming increasingly a focus. So so looking at books, book chapters likewise benefit from increased downloads where they're open. We see a greater spread of countries. So for open access books, we looked at data from 2019, and it showed that over 202 countries around the globe were accessing open books. We've also seen with certain partnerships that a big jump in access where we've had partnerships for open books. So for instance, with the Kyoto University, the University of Helsinki, where we've had a focus on open books, we've been able to open those books and look at the increase in countries accessing those books, and also see an access in the institutions. We've put an open books data policy in place since last year in April to support humanities and social sciences researchers when they're considering open data, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And then finally, we've been working with Knowledge Unlatched on their partnership for African studies research. As I mentioned, we've also not just had an open data policy broadly, but we've focused down into what we're working on with humanities and social sciences researchers, looking at their needs and developing a specific policy that targets the needs of researchers, some of whom don't really think about what they're using as data. So it's becoming a more developed conversation. And that connects to our publishing on F1000. So F1000 is a platform that publishes open. You publish, the peer review process happens afterwards, and the focus is on really trying to increase transparency in research. And so one of the needs there, or the requirements, is that you provide an open data statement. And then we have the open peer review. So at the end, you can see the reviewer reports, you can see how the researchers engage with those reports, and they're connected to the versions of the research. So just to quickly summarize what we're doing, for humanities and social sciences, certainly for now, there really is a need for a variety of models, developing the open Routledge research platform with F1000, developing data policies, also investing in collaborative discussions with libraries and transformative agreements to move the burden from the author and to develop an approach to institutions, We're looking at ways to increase crowdsourcing for books and taking a subject focus. And certainly the challenges are there. We need to look more at equity and non-APC models, look particularly at how we work with open books and some of the policy changes that are coming, especially with the recent OSTP announcement. But with that, I'll finish up, and with the mention of books, I'll hand over to Amy Harris at the MIT Press.
Oh, thank you, Emily. I'll fumble with my slides for a moment here. Oh, thank you so much for joining us today, everyone. And with any luck, I'll have correctly shared my screen so that you can see my first slide. Supporting an open future for humanities and social science research at the MIT Press. I'm Amy Harris. I'm the Senior Manager, Library Relations and Sales at the MIT Press, where I've been for the last 5 years. And it's been an extremely exciting and busy 5 years. Plus, I would say, even going back further at the MIT Press, where we have quite a long history of innovating in the open access space. To give you a little bit of background, the MIT Press traces its involvement in open access book publishing back to 1995, when the press published William Mitchell's City of Bits, which was published simultaneously in a print and a dynamic open web edition. It was an instance where a scholar came to us and said, I'd like to do this new and different thing, and I'm interested in how this new technology may, increase access and drive innovation in this space. And we thought that was really cool. So we did it. It was a tremendous success, and we have been innovating in this space ever since. In the last 2 to 3 years, most of our journals program, most of our new journals that we have brought out have been Diamond open access journals. There are a few listed there on the left side of the slide, and they're all very multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, with a strong focus on the humanities, even within journals like Rapid Reviews COVID-19, where, as Emily indicated before, it's infectious disease scholars, and they felt very strongly that there needed to be a social sciences, humanities perspective on what was happening, because that was vital to the overall understanding of the pandemic. We also have been very active and are increasingly active in moving beyond the book and journal. And I also have cover images for a number of digital humanities projects that the press has recently published. You will see the cover image for A New Vision for Islamic Pasts and Futures, which is a co-publication with Brown University Libraries. It's a beautiful born digital work that actually does not have a print component. And we're also partnering with Brown on a new series called On Seeing, which is an experiment in multimodal publishing, where there will be a print and a dynamic web version of each work available. But we also have experimented widely in open peer review and community annotation. Frankenbook is a collective reading and a collaborative annotation experience of the original text of Frankenstein. And users can go in, it's often used as an open educational resource. Teachers can annotate the work with their class. They can draw on annotations from others in the community. And it's a living, dynamic work, that brings people together, and thanks to the open access publication, allows all sorts of different uses and reuses of that content. And we also have experimented with bilingual, multilingual works in this space. One of the issues that often comes up in talking about open and equity is the effect of the fact that most of these publications, closed publications, they're in a certain language, translation rights are expensive. What does it mean if we're publishing more openly for open translation, for bringing that work to different audiences, and also having more linguistic diversity in the scholarly literature? So Of course, Emily mentioned books. I mentioned books. In the last few years, we have been very active in pursuing sustainable open access models for books. We've partnered with outside foundations, scholarly societies, university departments, libraries, anyone that we felt shared our common values and nonprofit values for openness and equity. And so, for instance, we recently partnered with the Mellon Foundation to bring out some 40 plus classic art and architecture books, which had been declared out of print, but they were classic works that people referred back to. And we've worked with the MIT libraries on the fantastic Strong Ideas series, which actually has an open peer review component. We've also worked with Tome, but what you may have heard about from us most recently is our work on our direct to open access model for scholarly books. And humanities and social science works are strongly represented in that model. And just because it was where we started, I have the cover image for City of Bits up here, since that that really was the first spark that that set us on this path. So hopefully this is advancing. So in the last 4 years, we have been developing and subsequently launching direct to open. And I took a look at the data that we have through this period. Thanks to a generous grant from the Arcadia Foundation, we were making some of our frontlist monographs open access upon publication during this period to study the effects on print sales, usage, and more while we were designing Direct to Open. We launched Direct to Open in 2021, and we had our first front list full crop of open access monographs that are publishing this year in 2022. It was interesting to note that we published roughly the same number of OA titles in both the humanities and social sciences collection and the STEAM, which is STEM and Art plus Design collection. And we published a little less than twice as many paywalled monographs at the same time, again, while we were building up to the direct to open model. But of course, the use for the open works is exponentially more than for the paywalled works. And this is not anything new. I think, from publishers that made their catalogs freely available during the pandemic to open publishers who are working often in this space. When things are openly available, they get used, they get talked about. And we saw that across the board, even in a short period of time for our open access works. And however you slice this data, it's, again, the increase in usage is exponential. Our open access humanities and social sciences titles were viewed 409,000 times versus 153,000 times for the toll access titles. The STEAM titles were viewed 323,000 times versus 144,000 times for the paywall books. And so, no matter how you slice it, the humanities and social sciences ebooks are leading the charge and arguably benefiting the most from open access publication if you're using readership and visibility as the key metric. Of course, the other thing that these titles are doing is contributing to the public dialogue, engaging readers, policymakers, scholars, and just interested lay readers. And that shows up in the altmetric data for the same books. The top 2 titles on this list are both open access. They were also both openly peer-reviewed and have been available in dynamic text-based open access editions for basically the entire publication cycle, so before publication and after. They've sold tremendously well in print for scholarly works, and they are continuing to inform conversations about these topics. In this top 10, 6 of the titles are open, and the remainder are paywalled. So this is, if you think about the benefits for the humanities and social sciences of contributing to public discourse, this is another factor that open access undeniably helps with. Of course, historically, it's been a challenge for humanities and social sciences scholars to publish open access. And people smarter than I have written about this at length. I've sourced this material from Peter Suber and his brilliant preface to Martin Paul Eves' Open Access in the Humanities. But lack of funding, lack of mandates, although that is interestingly changing potentially with things like the Nelson Memo, OSTP, Plan S, et cetera. And also an important factor is the focus on books as the primary literature in the humanities and social sciences rather than journal articles. Not only are books more expensive to produce, they also often come with another interesting traditional publishing factor, which is traditionally royalties are paid on book sales, which has an interesting dynamic that I'll get into later. And in addition, there have been fewer working examples of open access in humanities and social sciences fields, but as more libraries invest in this, I think we're going to see more evidence that this is of tremendous benefit to humanities and social sciences scholars. So we're in the unique position of having to talk some of our authors into why it's a great idea, what we're doing. We believe very strongly that this is an equity issue, that being able to publish openly shouldn't be a privilege. It should be something that regardless of an author's affiliation or their ability to pay, that avenue should be open to them. And we've tried to build models that will support that kind of open publication. This is a reaction from one of our authors who very succinctly says, I don't write for royalties as much as I write for impact. The goal is to be of use to as many readers as possible across the world, rich or poor. The impact and readership and being of use is the most important thing to this person. On the flip side, another reaction we often get is this one. I've read a testimonial in which an author claims that more people will read and use his book because of direct to open, but the flip side seems to be that no one will pay him to do it. I don't see the value in this for me. And I don't want to cast aspersions on this point of view as it's valid, but I also, this is a very real barrier. And one of the more common questions that we get from authors when we talk to them about the benefits of open, since traditionally, this is not a conversation that happens around journal articles, but it is one that happens around books. But it's very, I think, vital for us to be able to answer that author who asks us about what is the value in this for me? Because I think, we're very wary of a future in which only scholars from certain disciplines might be able to publish open access. What does that mean? Currently, humanities and social sciences are trailing STEM in terms of the visibility and accessibility of their published research. In an age of research or data management tools at universities and the increasing tracking of research outputs, I think this is something that if we as the MIT Press are serving authors well, we're going to work with authors to be sure that they're in those systems, that their work is accessible, that they are visible in these spaces and to the public, because in the end, public support for the humanities is a challenge. And we think, we have a part to play in that and a role to play. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you so much. I'm going to pass the mic over to the folks at Ohio State, and I will stop sharing my screen.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm Maureen Walsh, Scholarly Sharing Strategist for the Ohio State University Libraries, and I'm joined by my colleague, Jean Springs, Collection Strategist for University Libraries. Jean and I are the co-leads of the Ohio State University Libraries Strategic Initiative, Transforming the Scholarly Publishing Economy. For the past 3 years, we have consortially and institutionally directed funds away from unsustainable payment models and towards models that seek to transform the scholarly publishing marketplace. Our broader goals include educating, learning, informing, and building partnerships with stakeholders to support actions that will transform publishing economics, expand avenues of open access, extend read access, and support authors' rights. The guiding principles of our initiative inform our strategic priorities and are aligned with Ohio State's and university libraries' vision, mission, and values. At the foundation is making the research and scholarship of Ohio State's faculty, staff, and students openly available and stewarding Ohio State's financial resources.
Our strategic investments in open access follow multiple pathways and leverage our own university libraries, programs, and services, and collective action with our consortial partners, including the Big Ten Academic Alliance and OhioLink. We support open scholarly infrastructure, open scholarly monographs, subscribe to open models for journals, and transformative and transitional agreements with journal publishers. Much of what we support locally and consortially directly benefits humanities and social science authors and editors, including publishing and supporting Diamond open access journals, supporting the Open Library of Humanities, and university presses publishing in the humanities and social sciences. We are learning from and educating, informing, and engaging with stakeholders across campus to support the goals of our initiative. We are engaging with faculty in the humanities and social sciences to understand their perspectives on scholarly publishing, evaluation and credentialing, and promotion and tenure requirements. We continually engage with authors, editors, and members of scholarly societies to better understand their needs and motivations.
To advance the opening of scholarly monographs, we are a funding institution participant in TOME toward an open monograph ecosystem. We host the Ohio State University Press Open Monographs, and we support the University of Michigan Press's Fund to Mission and MIT Press's Direct to Open programs. TOME, a 5-year pilot project of the Association of American Universities, Association of Research Libraries, and the Association of University Presses, brings together scholars, universities, libraries, and university presses in pursuit of a common goal: a sustainable open monograph ecosystem. Monographs remain the preeminent form of scholarly publication in the humanities and humanistic social sciences, but the funding model is broken. The TOME pilot seeks to address this problem by moving us toward a new, more sustainable system in which monograph publishing costs are met by institutionally funded faculty book subsidies. These publication grants make it possible for university presses to publish monographs in open access editions, which increases the presence of humanities and humanistic social sciences research on the web and opens up scholarship to a truly global readership. As illustrated in these 2 quotes, our TOME-funded authors find that sharing their scholarly monographs openly advances the reach, use, and impact of their work.
As one broad facet of our multi-pronged approach, the agreements we've entered into as part of the initiative allow us to work toward our priorities while engaging campus and building out partnerships. Our first partnership with Taylor & Francis was Ohio State's first read and publish agreement and Taylor & Francis's first such deal in North America. Our pure publish agreement with PLOS was initiated in the Big Ten Academic Alliance and then broadened via the Center for Research Libraries, allowing us to engage across multiple consortia, as well as deepen our internal partnership with our Health Sciences Library. And OhioLink's hybrid open access publishing agreement with Wiley allows us to work alongside our diverse consortium membership within the state, while also aligning with the Big Ten Academic Alliance on their similar agreement with Wiley. Since the beginning of our initiative, over $1.5 million of article processing charges, or APCs, have been waived due to our various journal agreements, enabling 485 articles to be published open access with a Creative Commons license. In assessing our agreements, we were pleasantly surprised to find that just under 50% of the open access articles funded by our agreements have a corresponding author with an affiliation in the humanities and social sciences. These open access articles by authors with an affiliation in the humanities and social sciences represent over $726,000 of fees waived by our agreements. So you've heard several mentions of our consortia partners so far in our presentation. At Ohio State, Taylor and Francis was the publisher from whom we licensed the most content as a single institution. Even though we had hundreds of journal subscriptions, we received numerous requests for Taylor and Francis journal subscriptions each year. This was obviously a challenge in times when we had a flat budget year over year. As we began work on our strategic initiative, we entered into conversations with Taylor and Francis about a potential read and publish agreement. In particular, the diverse publishing portfolio of Taylor and Francis was intriguing. About 60% of its titles are in the humanities and social sciences, disciplines that may not have had as many opportunities to engage with open access, particularly in respect to funding and an author-side charge model. In addition, the interdisciplinarity of many journals in the Taylor and Francis portfolio was attractive to our researcher communities in the humanities and social sciences. We were able to negotiate a read and publish agreement as a pilot to understand how this type of agreement might work with a large publisher and how researchers publishing in their portfolio of journals would approach the choice of barrier-free open access. An objective of this pilot agreement is to examine open access uptake across the humanities and social sciences.
Prior to our read and publish agreement, Ohio State's open access publishing with Taylor and Francis was extremely low. As shown on this slide, our agreement, which began July 8th, 2020, had an immediate impact on Ohio State's publishing with Taylor and Francis, with significantly more authors choosing open access. In examining uptake of open access under the Taylor and Francis agreement, we were pleased to see that of the 303 articles approved for funding, 64% have a corresponding author with a humanities and social sciences affiliation. However, as this slide shows, of the 168 articles not published open access, just over 50% have corresponding authors with the humanities and social sciences affiliation. As we iterate our assessment metrics of this and other open access publishing agreements, we will continue to work to understand author choice and what, if any, role author affiliations, different publishing workflows, or other considerations have in open access uptake.
So as we continue into the next phase of our initiative, we still have much work to do. We will need to continue to build out our assessment metrics so we can both quantitatively and qualitatively tell stories of the impact of our work to make more research dissemination open access, while addressing pertinent concerns within the scholarly publishing economy. What does value mean for us and our myriad partners in this evolving marketplace? Speaking of partners, we will need to both broaden and deepen our collaborative partnerships in ways that are sustainable for all involved.
And while we have made some progress, fundamental issues of equity persist in the rapidly changing scholarly publishing ecosystem. In living our values, how we address this as part of our role in transformational and transitional agreements will ground our work going forward. You may contact us at transformpublishing@osu.edu, and more information is available on our website, library.osu.edu/transforming-publishing. Thank you.